My fiance's crazy ex-friend keeps begging us for money, as well as trying to break me and him up over the stupidest of reasons. And despite our attempts to get away from this crazy person, she keeps finding a way back into our lives. Here's what happened. So this entitled Karen and my fiance have had an odd past, even before I met him. In high school, he used to have a big crush on her, but she was not interested in him in that way. They did become good friends though and dated other people. After graduation, he went on to a serious relationship and so did she. She was dating another woman and asked him if he would be willing to donate to them so that they could have a baby, if you know what I mean. And surprisingly, he agreed, so long as they worked out a proper legal contract so that he wouldn't be legally or financially responsible for the child, which he agreed to arrange. Sometime later, my fiance and I started dating. He informs me of this agreement, asking what I think and if it would be an issue for us in the slightest. I say that I think he's being smart about it, and I respect that this was an agreement made to help a friend before I was in the picture, so I don't have any issue with it, and I am okay with it. Now, this appeared to be the case until it did appear that her relationship was failing. Yep, she was one of those surely a baby will fix it type of people. Both my fiance and I became more worried the more unhinged that her text became. Her relationship ended, but now she was insisting a baby would help her loneliness. While this was happening, my fiance and I were getting serious, and we were moving into an apartment together. One day while we were out near my parents' house, my fiance gets some alarming text messages from her. She tells us that she's in his dad's house, and his dad isn't even home. My fiance is texting her questions, and she's replying casually, as if she's doing a very normal thing. Apparently, she had let herself in with a spare key that he had given her years ago for emergencies. When asked what she was doing there, she claimed she was just spending time with his cat. Now, his cat isn't very social, and she was also taking pictures of my fiance's childhood pictures that were hanging on the walls, also that she could have an idea of what her future kids are gonna look like. Now, when we heard this, we were both incredibly disturbed, and I tell my fiance that I now have a stipulation to moving in together. I told him that this entitled Karen is not allowed to know our apartment address. Now, she's still baby crazy, and starts demanding my fiance finally donates to her. Never mind the contract, she just needs this baby. My fiance gives her a hard no at this, because not only is she clearly mentally unwell, but we know she doesn't have the financial resources for a kid, and I 100% back his choice. He tells her he can't do it, and she can go elsewhere. For our time at the apartment, we lived in blissful silence from her insanity, but that came crashing down a month after we moved into a house. Apparently, she was in a relationship that whole blissful period, because she just got broken up with. My fiance then asked me if she can come over because she was taking it really hard. I was incredibly hesitant, but kept thinking that we did now have a very large house, and it would be unfair to keep his friends away forever, especially if they are really good friends. He vouched for her that she seemed to be doing much better now. Plus, it had been like, what, 2 years now? So I agreed to give her a chance. I finally met the woman I demonized as some psycho obsessed with my fiance, and she seemed normal for the most part. I ended up spending more time with her than my fiance, since he's not great with emotional situations, and it felt like we became fast friends. She spent a few nights over while her ex was at their apartment, and we actually had a lot in common. Over several months, we became pretty close friends. We would confide life issues in each other. I believed her excuses for every red flag, showing that she's still unhinged. Towards the beginning, her ex still wanted to be friends, but wanted some space. The entitled Karen kept trying to ask for hugs or be clingy, pushing her ex's boundaries because she wasn't over her. Sometime later, the entitled Karen decided to try hooking up with a man and told me she thought she may be pregnant. I started asking what she was going to do, since she was struggling to pay for even herself, and if she even told this guy in the first place. She looked like the thought hadn't even crossed her mind, and muttered something about how she didn't even think that he wanted a kid. When she told me this, I was shocked, and when I told her that she has to tell him if she got a positive test, she suddenly agreed, as if that was her plan all along. Luckily, in the end, she wasn't even pregnant. But after a few months of living in her apartment alone, she told me that she started hearing a voice that isn't hers. So I suggested that she should see a psychiatrist, since it could be a form of schizophrenia or something similar, which is entirely manageable with professional help. She acted like she was considering this advice, but nothing came of it, and she never mentioned it again. Now, did I mention that this chick was baby crazy? She truly cemented her dedication to her dream of becoming a single mother, not just by texting me every couple of weeks about her goal of doing so and of moving away, but also by showing me her baby stuff. Oh yeah, she was prepped for any day that she might have a baby. A 44-gallon long storage bin filled to the brim with baby clothes of variety sizes and genders, plus a regular 31-gallon storage bin, mostly full of baby toys, as well as books and shoes. No, I don't personally have any close friends with kids, but I have never met anyone with this much baby stuff pre-child. Well, anyways, one summer day I was having a rough time. I was recovering recovering from an illness that took its toll on me, and we had a roommate at the time who was like having a child of our own. The entitled Karen offered to come over and clean and listen to me vent. She cleaned up the mess I couldn't, and we ended up going on a drive to talk in private. I confided in her that my fiance was back to having a huge problem giving people money again. He did this in the past, but stopped when I asked him to, because no one ever paid him back. He learned some of them lied and used the money for other nefarious things, and half the beggars weren't even his friends. Plus, this time, some of the amounts were in the hundreds of dollars. I was sobbing that we were months behind on rent when we really shouldn't be. She seemed sympathetic but annoyed at him. She then instantly suggested that I dump him, and I thought she was joking, but she was serious. I was genuinely baffled that she would suggest that I break up with him when our lives are so entangled together at this point that this was our first ever serious point of contention. She started trying to comfort me by saying that he's my best friend and that she loves him, but then in the same sentence to then continue to trash talk him. I was getting annoyed because the things she was saying were just mean and two-faced. About a month or two after our serious talk, I'm checking my fiance's bank account to see if he has stayed true to his word. And this was nothing shady, by the way. He had given me permission to view his bank account whenever I wanted. And what do I see? Guess what? Hundreds of dollars sent to this entitled Karen. He sent $500, tons of small $10 to $20 amounts, $200, $300, just some nonsensical amounts. He says the $500 was because she said she was at risk of being evicted. I told him that we can't afford to pay for her rent when we're struggling to eat ourselves. He agrees to stop sending her money, but I'm mostly hurt that she would take advantage of both my fiance and me at this point. She knew he had a problem and that we were struggling financially too, and still took advantage of us. She knew that I was incredibly stressed out about our situation and didn't care in the slightest. One night, she keeps bugging my fiance for $10. He tells me he's just going to send it to her to shut her up. And when he said this, I said, okay, but I'm going to call her out for it. I tell her then to stop begging my fiance for money, and she replies by saying, well, I don't appreciate you calling me begging. I get paid Friday, and I'm going to pay it back. I don't like owing people money. It's who I am. Now, I know she isn't going to, so I back down and we play friendly again. She makes an odd jab at me when I say that I'm just making sure that she's not taking advantage of my fiance like other users in his life, because she says that she's been around the longest, longer than any of his girlfriends, which I just ignore because I don't feel threatened by her in the slightest. By Friday, I keep reminding my fiance to bug her about the $10, since she made a point of telling me that she doesn't like owing people money. Well, apparently she didn't like that either, because she would just ignore those messages. Come Sunday, she's talking about making a will, and this is presumably due to her fainting spells that she claimed to be experiencing at the time. We don't know if these were real, but this was the day before her doctor's appointment, which she had claimed before that she hoped that they would tell her that she's gonna be passing away or something like that. Yeah, really crazy stuff. We were both done with her dramatic garbage at this point, and after reading her text out loud, I jokingly said, so about that $10, and we both just cracked up. She then actually sends her a text message asking her about the will, while also asking her about the $10, and thankfully she just left him on red and didn't even answer. 2 days after my fiance and I were talking about how we couldn't believe she still hasn't replied or literally said anything, my fiance checks other social media and discovers that she has unfriended him on Snapchat and Facebook. I check and she did the same to me. Now I'm annoyed, but I'm not too surprised at this point because crazy's gonna be crazy. But when I look over at my fiance, he is genuinely hurt by this. He doesn't say it, but I can tell she helped reaffirm his fear that his friends only like him for his money. He does say that she was one of the longest friends that he's ever had, and he can't believe that she would do that over $10. And at this point, I'm red with rage. My fiance goes to sleep sad, and I realize I can still message her on Facebook, even though we're not friends. I decide to play dumb and ask if we did something. She claims that she's taking a break from social media, but this was obviously a lie, because for one, she was sending me TikToks just the day before, and as a second thought, I saw that she had a mutual friend still added on social media, and also literally who takes a break by unfriending their friends. And even literally like the next day after this conversation, she updated her cover photo and her profile picture. I point out the fact that we still have a mutual friend, and she claims that she's going from the top down to the bottom. I straight up just say to her that it seemed like after my fiance asked about the $10, all of this started to happen. She says no, she's just been super busy with work, and she's planning to move. So after that, I just stop replying. The next day, I catch our roommate up with the drama because I am still seething with rage. He goes on to ask her what her name is, and I tell him. He pulls up her Facebook and starts messaging her. He says to her, hey, you got that $10? And she replies by saying, who in the world is this? He then sends her a message by saying, I thought you were taking a break from social media. And this entitled Karen sent a message by saying, I keep my messenger open for friends and family. And then she blocked him. We both laughed laughed at how dumb it was, hoping it wouldn't cause my fiance too much trouble. He enters the kitchen, and my roommate goes to him and says, "Listen, I did message your former friend." And my fiance just goes, "Oh, I know, I've been hearing about it. She sent me screenshots." We all bust up laughing about it, and then this entitled Karen gets to me. She sends me a screenshot of her sending my fiance $9 and says to me, "I also don't appreciate being bought by your roommate, seeing as I have to explain to your fiance why it took me a moment to pay him back." And that's when I decided that the kids' gloves were off. I took my time and I sent back this absolute banger of a message. I said to her, "I didn't ask him to. I was just talking to him and he did it on his own. And it also took that to get you to explain anything. So don't make it sound like you explain it to my fiance first and then my roommate messaged you. It's kind of messed up that you ignored my fiance and me every time we mentioned the $10 that you owe him. Like the fact that you made a whole deal out of telling me that you get paid on Friday and that you're gonna give it back to him, and how you don't like owing people because it's just who you are, to then you making me seem like a massive jerk for calling you out, all because you're asking my fiance for more handouts. And even still, you just ignored every reminder, so you don't even have a good enough excuse. Like if you didn't get paid, you could have said so and not been like, "Oh, I can't read suddenly." And after I sent that text message to her, she didn't reply. I waited for a few hours with a typed list of things I wanted to say before likely being blocked, and then sent it. Essentially, it was a long multi-paragraph wall of text in which I told her that we knew she unfriended us over this, as well as how much it hurt my fiance, and how we have both noticed her manipulative tendencies now, how it's not about the money itself, because if it was, we would be hounding her about the $500. Basically explaining that money isn't the real issue, but in fact, it's because she kept asking my fiance for money, knowing he has a problem with saying no. We simply can't afford to fund whatever she's doing, and it's putting stress on our relationship. And I specifically mentioned how she borrowed $500 from us after I had literally sobbed in her car about how bad our finances were, and she still took advantage of my fiance. I may have gone a little petty after this, and mentioned it being a reoccurring trend that she goes crazy after a breakup, while also explaining why she never got to see our apartment. I directly called her out for entering my fiance's dad's house without anyone's permission. I called her a mooch, and I told her that she needs mental help. And wouldn't you believe it, she just left me on red. Not gonna lie, part of me kind of hoped that she would at least try to argue. I didn't want to believe someone would actually be so cruel to others and hang them out to dry. But despite everything I said to her, she went on to text my fiance as if nothing had happened. She vaguely stated that she wasn't comfortable coming over anymore, but wouldn't say why when she was asked. About a week later, she tried asking for $150 again, but obviously my fiance wasn't having it. She played oblivious just like I used to when she tried dialing up the self-pity. I asked him to block her after this and he did. Another 2 weeks went by and she texted him from a new number, playing the same old game. This time she tried laying it on hard by claiming that she was super depressed over her financial struggles. My fiance just replied by agreeing, since we've also had bad financial struggles and his anxiety has been awful, while also struggling with intrusive thoughts as well, if you know what I mean. Now, I guess that wasn't the answer that she wanted from her best friend, because she switched topics almost immediately. She started saying that he should really break up with me because we're just not a good match, and that's when he blocked her again. When my fiance told me this, I just burst out laughing. I knew she was trying to break us up, and I finally had my confirmation. I just never imagined it would be such a sad attempt. Oh, and by the way, I added up how much she borrowed just in 2022, and it totaled up to $1,670. But with all things considered, my fiance and I are so relieved that this entitled Karen is officially out of our lives. What a crazy turn of events. I mean, seriously, let's think about this for a second. This entitled Karen not only wanted her fiance to donate to her, if you know what I mean, also she could have a baby to cure her loneliness. Well, I've got news for you. A baby is literally the last thing you want if you're looking for any kind of solution in your life. Having a baby is a serious decision, and that is something you definitely don't want to take lightly, but it obviously seems like this entitled Karen was taking it lightly, and I'm personally blown away that the original poster even let this crazy lady back in her life in the first place. I mean, this entitled Karen has proven that she is not a good person, and she only wanted to be around to try and ruin your relationship while also begging your fiance for money. And sure, after a while of dealing with this stuff, this all would obviously become a game to you all, which did kind of lead to you trolling her with your roommate, as well as you talking to her about the $10. But in my honest opinion, I really think you should have just cut her off right from the get-go. She should have never been allowed in your house in the first place, and I think the original poster was completely misguided, as well as incredibly foolish for confiding in this lady who not even 2 years ago was begging for your fiance to basically give her a child. Like, what on earth were you thinking? That's not someone you want to confide in. So hopefully the original poster and the fiance learned a valuable lesson, and hopefully in the future, this entitled Karen plays no role in their life ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled customer freaks out when he realizes he has to pay for his drinks after being told by the organizer of the event that he didn't have to pay for a dime. And I unfortunately got caught in the crossfire, and I've never been more annoyed in my life. Here's what happened. So I had my restaurant booked out for a private event for about 150 people yesterday, and this was for a big sports event. This doesn't happen super often, and it's only the second private event I've worked, the first time being an absolute disaster, during which every member of staff cried at least once. Needless to say, we were hoping this time went a lot smoother. Now, we were just working on the info the organizers gave us, which we were led to believe had been communicated to the guests as well. Basically, if the guests had a pink lanyard, they were paying for drinks as they went. A gray lanyard, on the other hand, meant that they had a prepaid package and got free refills on beers, wines, and soft drinks. What's important to note is that they did not get spirits included. The event actually goes super smooth. We get their 2 courses out really quickly. Drinks are flying out the bar at a rapid pace, and we as a restaurant actually all smashed it, to be completely honest. The organizers told us to stop serving drinks at about 1 o'clock, get their checks paid off, and get everyone ready to depart on their coaches to the game. And this is where things started getting interesting. 3 of my 5 tables asked to talk to a manager when I told them the bar was closed, and it makes me question why they thought that she'd be able to do anything about it when we were just working on what the organizers told us. So honestly, I just don't know what they were thinking. Then, one of my tables with gray lanyards got confused when I brought over the bill. One guy asked me, "What in the world is that?" To which I told him it was the bill, and the refills of beer they had were included in their package, so it was just the several double vodkas they had to pay for. He then asked me, "Since when do I have to pay for that?" And I obviously told him that was the plan from the start because, well, it was. Well, he was not pleased to say the least. He started yelling at me about how he'd ordered the premium package and wasn't supposed to have to pay, and about how this was an absolute disgrace and that he wanted me to get my manager right now and all this other stuff. After a few minutes of this and me gently explaining that we were working on the information provided by their organizers, he demanded I go get someone who is in charge. I was already sick of him, and I knew my manager wouldn't be able to do anything, so I just went straight to the top. I got the main organizer, and I asked him what was going on. He went to speak to them, then spoke to my manager, and I have no idea what happened or what was said, but somehow the guy ended up not having to pay for the spirits, and they were put on the organizer's tab instead. I do understand the guy's perspective though, especially if he thought he was getting everything included, and then that didn't happen. Honestly, if that happened to me, I would be upset as well. But bro, I am not the person to be yelling at, and in my opinion, it's a lack of organization as well as clarity on the organizer's part, not ours. Other than that, everything went well for the most part. I actually got some decent tips, and we were told we had all done really well. But still, despite that, that one guy who freaked out on me certainly put a damper on my evening. Honestly, if I was that guy, I might have gotten upset as well. If I paid for what I thought was a premium package, and I was told, hey, I'm gonna get everything basically no matter what, and I wouldn't have to pay at the event as I already did pay, I'd be furious if that wasn't the case suddenly. And yeah, he could have handled that in a much better way, and while he definitely shouldn't have taken that out on the waiter, I do kind of understand where he's coming from. If anything, he should be angry at that organizer, because clearly they gave some misinformation here, and they basically lied to their customers, as well as the people that were going to the event. I mean, to go to an event with the expectation that your drinks would basically be taken care of if you bought into this premium package, and then all of a sudden the premium package only covers some of it, and you weren't informed of that, would be a major slap in the face. So honestly, the organizer is absolutely all to blame. They did not do this properly, and they did this in a shady way. So hopefully the next time they organize an event, they're able to have their ducks more in a row, because the way the people around them got treated was absolutely disrespectful, and all the anger and fury should not have gone towards the waiter, but rather towards the organizer themselves. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out in the description below and subscribe.